Hi and welcome to the program. I'm Gary Hoogvliet. I've been waiting a long time to interview our next guest. He's a lot of fun, he's written books, he's preached in unusual places, he's met lots of famous people, he knows some pretty good jokes, and he's a man that I would love to sit beside on a long distance flight. It's one of those questions that people ask you from time to time. He's also got Canon in the front of his name. His name, Canon J John. Thank you so much for joining us on the program.
Thank you, Gary. Well, thank you for having me.
When I think of all the things that you've done, and you're still a relatively young man, did you ever think that you'd do all this stuff?
I don't think I did, actually. I think if I hadn't gone into the... if I hadn't just begun to follow Jesus, I'd probably be running a kebab shop in London.
Now, be serious. What would you really have wanted to do at, say, 15?
I think, well, at 15, I think I was thinking about medicine or being a lawyer, one or the other.
So how did your family think about the transfer from law and medicine to being a vicar?
Well, that was a cultural shock. Being Greek, coming from a Greek family, that was a real big shock. And if you've seen the movie My Big Fat Greek Wedding, you'll know a little bit about the drama of being Greek.
So at what age did you make a decision that firstly you would become a Christian?
I met a Christian called Andy Conomides when I was 17, and then over a period of about 6 months, he introduced me to the Christian faith and to the Bible and to understand who Jesus was. And so I was nearly 18 when I came to faith.
So was it a battle for you as a 17, 18-year-old?
No, actually it wasn't. My mind was illuminated, and I just knew that Andy had something that was really real. And on the 9th of February 1975, well, in fact, the day before, he showed me where it says in the last book of the Bible, Jesus stands at the door and he knocks of a house, and if you hear the knock, open the door, let him in. And Andy said to me, "Have you heard God knocking?" And I said, "Do you know, I have." And I don't know how I'd heard, but I was aware that there was this kind of other something knocking on my life. And he said, "Have you opened the door?" And I said, "I don't know where the door is. I mean, where's the door?" And he said, "Look, don't worry about where the door is. Just ask Jesus to break the door down." 9th of February, 1975. I said, "Jesus, break the door down." And the light came on.
Well, you are a canon. Does that mean you've been a vicar before? Or is that the process within the Anglican Church?
Well, Gary, did you know this? That the literal meaning of the word canon, it literally means a model. So you're kind of bestowed this as like a sign of authority. Now, I know one definition of the word model is it's the replica of the real thing. But let's stick with the original one, which is, hopefully someone who whose behaviour matches their belief.
Well, I suppose over the last couple of years, you're probably quite famous now for the Just 10 series. You're teaching on the 10 Commandments.
Yeah, well, I think it was... I started to think about that in the year 1999 as we were going into a new year and a new millennium. And I was seeking God about, Lord, as we go into this new era, is there something I should be focusing on? And I had another little epiphany where I kind of heard the Lord say, teach my values, my principles, my commandments. And at that time, I had never heard anyone preach the 10 Commandments. I'd heard them mentioned, but I'd never heard 10 sermons on the 10 Commandments. And so that began this whole process of trying to shape and crystallise, which has then become this Just 10 series. And it's been remarkable.
Have you asked people to recite the 10 Commandments? Do most of us know what they are?
Well, most people, if they're asked to do that, in the church, if you're a church goer, the average is 7 out of 10, and outside of the church, the average is 3.
So I was thinking about some of the things that I should ask you about the 10 Commandments,
Yeah.
and this sort of rather random thought came into my head to say, what would be the 11th commandment if there had been the 11th one?
I know that question has arisen a number of times. What would the 11th one be? Probably my 11th one would be, don't worry about the 11th, just keep the 10.
Have you ever met anybody who has said that they've broken all 10 of them?
Yes.
No.
Yes. Seriously. And I met this person recently. That's why I responded to you so quickly. I didn't even have to think about it. It's one of my neighbours where I live. And I was doing the Just 10 series and recently. And I invited her. And she says, oh, no. She says, no, I can't come. So I said, why can't you come? She goes, I've broken all 10 of them. So I said, well, that's the reason you need to come. Oh, no, there's no hope for me, she said. So she wouldn't come.
And she didn't come?
No, she didn't come.
Yeah.
But I see her frequently. I see her probably. My wife and I have a cup of tea with her once a week.
Wow. Some people go, 10 Commandments, Old Testament, we're living in the New Testament part of things. How do you respond to that?
Well, the thing is that there are principles, guidelines that God has laid down that are timeless for all cultures, for all times. And I believe that God's 10 Commandments are for humankind forever. You know, the thing is, it depends how you perceive them. You see, they're not a trap. Some people think they're a bit of a trap, but they're not a trap, they're a map. Now, if you see them as a map, then you can see, hey, this is how humanity should be living in terms of belief and behaviour.
And is thou shalt not commit adultery, is that the one that everyone starts to get a little bit sort of sensitive about when you preach it?
No, I don't think that. Well, I don't think they get more sensitive about that one as any other, actually. Normally that one is, most people think it's not don't commit adultery, they think it's don't admit adultery. But actually, if you, for example, take coveting, that really gets to people, because the reality is, I mean, say, for example, you're in a restaurant and you order your dessert. By the time the person's next to you dessert arrives, you realise you've made the wrong choice. We're constantly feeling that the grass is greener over that side of the fence. But the reality is the grass isn't greener over that side of the fence. The grass isn't greener over this side of the fence. The grass is greener when you water it. And I think the thing is, as you go through coveting and you stealing, lying, adultery and murder, and people start thinking, oh, I haven't committed murder. But the issue of that commandment is actually anger. And so how do we deal with anger? And some people have taken it to the full extreme and actually taken a life.
Do some people in different cultures interpret those commandments differently?
Well, I think sometimes, we all have our cultural baggage, and we all have a little bit of history, and sometimes we endeavour to accommodate certain principles to fit our own kind of personal convictions. But I think when you really talk to people, most of them agree, look, you can't twist this, do not steal. I mean, you can't twist that, can you? Some people take, don't they? They say, oh, I only take a few pence from the office. Well, the commandment doesn't say don't steal £1 at a time, does it?
It does not, no. One of the amazing things about living in this day and age is the technology that we have.
Yes.
And people can be watching from anywhere in the world. Are you a fan of new technology? Not that TV's that new, I guess.
Oh, listen, if Jesus was here on earth today, I 100% believe he'd use technology. Honestly, he'd use technology.
For a number of people, reading is something that they just don't do anymore. It's like their life is dominated by a computer screen. So is it okay to learn everything via a computer screen as opposed to picking up the old-fashioned book, the old Bible as we know?
Yeah, I mean, I think the thing is, let's try and access as much as we can in the best way that we can. so I would encourage people to feed in many different ways. I mean, I use both. I use a computer, but I use the books.
Are you a reader?
Yeah, I read a lot. Love reading.
So what are you reading at the moment?
I love reading. Seriously,
Yeah.
reading. I've always been reading books. The book that has really impacted me this year, more than any other, is called The Jesus I Know, and it was compiled by a man called Adam Harbinson. And in that book, he asked 39 different people from all walks of life to each write how they see Jesus. And I got asked to be one of the contributors. So there's me plus 38 other contributors. And as I've read some of those other contributions, honestly, I've been blown over because I've seen things about Jesus that are new to me. And like my perspective has changed. And I've really been inspired. And it's very easy to read because each contribution, only takes 5 minutes.
Well, Adam is a columnist on UCB as well. You probably didn't know that. But he is kind of edgy, isn't he?
Yeah.
He sometimes forces you to sort of suck your breath in a little bit. Is that okay, as opposed to the gentle Jesus, meek and mild that we often think we should be?
Definitely.
It is?
Yeah, because I think sometimes we can get very comfortable, and I think we do need a kind of a push and a shake, and he's very good at doing that. He's very astute, and he's very stimulating.
You've done a lot of travel. You've met a
Yes.
lot of famous people. Are there any that sort of really stand out as being people that it's been great to meet? You're better off for having met them.
Well, do you know, the thing is, so on my travels, I've been travelling for 30 years and been to a number of countries and on 5 continents. So obviously I've met all sorts of people from all sorts of cultures. And sometimes the people that impact me the most are the most ordinary, that probably nobody ever knows, who are doing a remarkable work. I mean, like recently, I went to Uganda, and while I was there, I met a woman called Kathleen, and she's Scottish, and she works in the Sessi Islands, which are a cluster of islands off Uganda, and you've got to get on a boat, small little boat, for 2.5 hours to go to these islands. And these islands are kind of full of disease and AIDS infected. And this amazing woman goes and ministers to these people. Not many people have heard of Kathleen. Do you know what I mean? I mean, I was just bowled over by her, really. Her stamina, her energy, and every day she, holds babies that are dying. But she's got great gumption and great, we had lots of laughs.
What about the famous people that maybe we would know that you've met?
I used to visit with Andrew, for example, Yasser Arafat, and every time I used to visit him, he always would get me to preach him a sermon. And so all these people are kind of receptive and open. And I remember I gave Mr. Arafat a copy of my book about Jesus. And I said, Mr. Arafat, I'd like to give you this book about the greatest leader and reconciler to be born in Palestine. He really liked that. He thought that was really clever.
And do you think he read it?
Well, I hope he dipped into it. Well, at least I sowed seed. I try and sow seed in the lives of these people. Well, irrespective of whether it's the shoeshine man or whether it's someone like Yasser Arafat, if I get the opportunity to meet them, I do my best to sow some seed of Jesus.
So do you feel that your time in the Middle East was valuable in terms of preaching the gospel?
Yeah, I think the thing is, it's always very difficult, Gary, to quantify what we all do. And I think sometimes you've got to trust that what you do will eventually bear fruit. Because you don't always see it, do you? And but I think it's important to be consistent with the message and constant.
You've used the word influencer a couple of times. Is that how you see yourself, an influencer?
Well, I suppose I see myself as a sower, and I see myself as an influencer. You know, I'm trying to influence people to think differently. And what's interesting with the principles of the Ten Commandments, you know, you can talk to Jewish people about the Ten Commandments. I mean, I sat with the chief rabbi of Israel, talking with him like this about the Ten Commandments. Now, even though my interpretation might be slightly different in terms of needing the grace of Jesus and the Spirit, Holy Spirit to help us keep them, we had something in common that we could dialogue on. I've spoken to lots of Islamic leaders about the Ten Commandments. In fact, at one of my Just Tens, Archbishop Johnson Talmu used to bring all the Islamic leaders of Birmingham, and they all sat on the front row listening to me teach the Ten Commandments.
A wee bit of a loaded question, because sometimes in our attempt to preach the gospel, we sometimes make people grumpy.
Yeah, I think we do. I like what Peter says, St. Peter, about always be ready to give an answer for your belief, your faith. But he then says, but do this with gentleness and respect. And I think sometimes we're not always ready, and even when we are ready, we do it, but we don't always do it with gentleness and respect. I think it's very important that we communicate with gentleness and respect.
When you think back over the years and the people that you've met and the situations that you've been in, are there any meetings that sort of like stand out head and shoulders, life-changing meetings, life-changing people?
Obviously,
apart from Andy,
meeting my wife.
That was a good answer.
That was, you know, a landmark in my life.
No, I know you're being serious.
I know, and I am
don't mean
actually.
to be flippant.
No, but it's true, Gary.
Yeah.
Seriously, I'd say because I've not in our conversation, you know, spoken about my wife Killy. She's my best friend, and we've been married 26 years. Got the silver medal, going for gold. But I couldn't have done what I've done in these last 30 years, sustained it without Killy's support and influence over me. And, you know, she, I would say, is the linchpin in our family. And she's my #1 fan. She's my #1 critic.
So when you speak at public functions,
Yes.
at the end, you often ask people to, hey, make a decision.
I do.
Are you asking them to make a decision one way or the other?
Well, I think the thing is, every time you hear something, you are making a decision. People are making a decision.
Even no is a decision. Is that what you're
Yeah,
saying?
no, it's a decision, isn't it? And well, put it this way: if you don't say yes, that's a decision in itself. So I'm helping people respond and apply what they've heard. And I think sometimes I don't know, I feel we should do more of that. You know, what's the point of hearing a great sermon on 1 Corinthians 13 on love, and then at the end of it say, oh well, hope that's been good information. You know, we don't want information, we want transformation, and then demonstration of what you've heard.
There's so much more coming into our life on a day-to-day basis than, say, 30, 35, 40 years ago. Do you think that makes it more difficult for people to become a Christian?
I don't think it does. No, I don't. I don't know, sometimes people suggest that, but I think people today outside of the church are spiritual. They are spiritual. Now, it may be a bit of a pick and mix spirituality, but there is a spirituality. And I think people are receptive and responsive. I was having my hair cut, and the hairdresser, I noticed on her key ring, that she had a rabbit's foot. So I said, Mary, why have you got a rabbit's foot on your keyring? And she said, oh, that's to bring me good luck. I said, but Mary, the rabbit wasn't lucky. So I said, if the rabbit wasn't lucky, how's it going to bring you any luck? And she was like, oh no, I've never thought of that. And she went straight to her keys, got the rabbit's foot on, chucked it in the bin. You know, she was actually a bit spiritual.
So do you think within us there is a spirituality, whether we believe in Christendom or not?
I do. And what we need to do...
Is that God-given?
Yeah, it's God-given. I think, you know, and what we need to do is to be able to say that there is a yearning within people, but the true and living God is called Jesus. Yeah, I was talking to a Jewish girl, a friend of mine and we were talking to this Jewish girl that we met, and we prayed for her, and she had an incredible experience of the presence of God. And she said, what was that? And we said, well, that was Yahweh's presence. But then she said, but you're Christians. And we said, yes, we are. So I said to her, look, ask Yahweh to tell you what his real name is. And she was like, you could tell, you know. So I didn't need to tell her that I believe that Yahweh's name is Yeshua, Jesus. I said, you've just experienced him. Now you ask him to reveal what his name is. And in the meantime, worship Yahweh.
Well, I'm figuring out that this program is probably, and maybe rightly or wrongly, thinking that most of the people that are watching are Christians, or may think they are Christians. But for those who aren't, or have been sort of just trying to figure their way in life, what do you say to them today?
I would say to anyone like that, what I said earlier on in our conversation about what Andy, who showed me that passage in the last book of the Bible, chapter 3 of the book of Revelation. Jesus stands at the door and he knocks. If you hear the knock, open the door. And I would say, if you've heard a knock, just say, Jesus, wherever this door is, I want to open it and I want to let you in. And I want you to forgive me, and I want you to fill me with your presence, and I want you to help me to be the person you want me to be.
Regardless of age?
Regardless of age, regardless of where you've been, regardless of what you've done. You know, Jesus didn't come into this world to rub it in. He came into this world to rub it out. You know, hence, it's good news. The way I often explain it to people is like the car of your life. And to be a follower of Jesus means that you've got Jesus in the car. And now, so if Jesus is not in the car of your life, you need to invite him in. But I think with a lot of us, Jesus is in the car. But the question is, where is he in the car? So is he in the boot? You know, do we drive our car to church, unlock the boot and get Jesus out for religious happy hour?
You want him in the driver's seat, I take it?
Yes, you've jumped straight there. But the problem with some people is he is in the driving seat, but they're backseat drivers.
I know one or two of those.
I know. So I think the thing is, for all of us, make sure we've got Jesus in the driving seat and we're not dictating to him. I think that's really important.
Please pray for us.
I will. I'd like to, if you feel that Jesus is not in the car of your life, or he is, but he's in the wrong place, then echo this prayer. Jesus, I would like you to be in the driving seat of my life. And I ask you to forgive me, cleanse me. And I ask you to fill me with your Holy Spirit. Help me from this day on to build my life on you and validate my faith in thought and word and deed. In Jesus' name, Amen.
Canon J John, thank you so much for spending time with us on UCB. It's been fun and it's been very informative. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Gary.
God bless you.
Thank you.
And if you'd like further information about what J John has been speaking about, you can go to ucbmedia.co.uk or go to the website lookingforgod.com. Thanks very much for your time.